Hello, Mr. Hall. How are you?
I am fine, Mrs. Boldizar, and yourself?
Just wonderful. How can I help you?
I have noticed recently that Kevin's science grades this semester are very low. I wanted to talk to you about it.
Certainly. He has done very well all year until we started our unit this semester.
I think that he is having trouble with the information, and I was hoping you could help me understand what they are learning so I could possibly help him at home better.
Absolutely. The unit we are working on mostly deals with animals, the ecosystem, and how they interact with it to survive.
I see. I noticed that he was having trouble with understanding the food chain and food web, as well as the producers and some other things that I just don't remember since it has been years since I was in school.
Well, the food chain is the path energy takes in the community. It is more or less how energy, from the sun, travels from one living thing to another. The producers are the first to receive this energy since they are the only living thing that can make their own food. Since our planet is covered greatly with producers, which are plants, this is where the greatest amount of energy in our ecosystem is found.
Oh, I remember that plants make their own food using energy from the sun and water. That is photosynthesis, correct?
Yes, sir. For the energy to travel in a community, a consumer, some type of animal, obviously a herbivore, has to eat the plant, the producer.
So like a grasshopper eating a plant.
Exactly. Then for the energy to keep traveling through the food chain, a consumer that eats animals, which we call secondary consumers, must eat the grasshopper, which we would call the primary consumer.
Okay, so what is the difference between the primary consumer and the secondary consumer?
Well, a consumer eats living things, but a primary consumer only eats plants, and the secondary consumers eat animals. They are considered carnivores.
I see. So what is a decomposer exactly?
Decomposers are living things in the environment that break down other living things such as plants and animals and return that energy back to the soil, air, and water.
So the energy is given back to the earth, right?
That is right. Decomposers can be animals or things like mushrooms, which are considered fungi.
What kind of animals are decomposers?
A worm is a decomposer. Unlike the mushroom, it is a consumer that is a decomposer because it actually eats the dead plants and animals. The mushroom merely absorbs the dead plants and animals from the ground.
I think I understand now. The producers provide energy to plant-eating animals, the herbivores, by using the energy from the sun. Then the consumer eats the plant, the producer, and the energy passes to the consumer. The decomposer returns the energy back to the earth by breaking down the dead plants and animals. Is that right?
Yes, Mr. Hall. That is exactly how the food chain works.
So, for the mushroom, a decomposer, to get the energy from the grasshopper would have to die and the mushroom would absorb its energy.
Yes, or a worm would eat its dead body from being in the soil and return those nutrients back to the earth.
Okay, I think I understand. The producers, which are the plants, the consumers, that eat the living things, which can be plants or animals, and the decomposers, that return the energy back to the earth from the dead plants or animals. Then what is the difference between the food chain and the food web?
Well, you see, Mr. Hall, the food chain is a single path the energy takes. However, as you know, we have many different types of animals in the world that eat each other. So the food web is merely the flow of energy through connected food chains.
So the food chain can be as simple as we said, the grasshopper eating the plant, and the grasshopper being broken down by the decomposer. A food web would be something else eating the grasshopper, another consumer obviously, like a frog, and then another consumer eating the frog, like a snake, and another consumer eating the snake like a bird, and so on.
Yes, Mr. Hall. You understand this stuff very well. I think you will do well with helping Kevin. However, he also needs to know many other things for this unit, like adaptations, the differences between populations, communities, and the ecosystem, as well as what a habitat is, and know the stages of the life cycle, specifically the butterfly and frog, and how they undergo metamorphosis.
Do you have time to explain some of that stuff to me? I really want to see him do well this semester in science.
Certainly. Animals have adaptations that they rely on to survive in their environment. There are structural and behavioral adaptations. The easiest way for him to remember the difference is that structural is something that is physically part of the animal, such as a beak that would help the animal eat or tear apart their food, or claws that help them dig for shelter or be used to defend themselves from other predators. Things like body color and body covering are also physical adaptations they use to protect and survive in their environment. Their body coloring can help them blend in and camouflage themselves to protect them from other animals, whereas body covering can protect them from the weather and predators.
So the structural adaptations are things physically on their body that they use to survive. Can you explain the behavioral adaptations?
Of course. Behavioral adaptations are things, or activities, the animal does to survive in their environment. Migration and hibernation are great examples. As I am sure you remember from your school days, migrating is when an animal or a group of animals move from one region to another and back again. Whereas, hibernation is a period when an animal goes into a long sleep. Both of these are actual activities, or things that they do to survive in their environment.
I think helping him remember that will be easy, if he just remembers that behavioral adaptations are things or activities the animal actually does, and structural adaptations are things physically on their bodies that help them.
That is exactly how I explain it in class to the students.
Can you please explain the differences between populations, communities, and the ecosystem?
Absolutely. Populations only include one species that live in a certain place, whereas a community includes different populations of organisms living together in an environment. For example, a population of snakes living without any other animals in a specific area is a population. A community would be the snakes and another type of animal or animals living in an environment together. The ecosystem is the actual community and its non-living environment. For example, a bunch of animals living in a certain area and all the things around them such as the water, trees, rocks and so on.
I understand. However, Kevin has explained that he doesn't really understand the difference between the ecosystem and a habitat. Could you explain the difference?
Sure. Many students confuse these two. A habitat is a place where an animal, or plant, naturally lives that provides it with food, water, shelter, and space. An easy way to remember habitat is that it starts with an H. Home also starts with an H. Your home is where you get your food, water, shelter, and space. The ecosystem, as you see, is the actual animals and everything surrounding them. It includes the living and non-living, which is everything. Everything starts with an E, and so does ecosystem.
That is a great trick for remembering the difference, Mrs. Boldizar. Kevin has told me how you have taught him many tricks for remembering things and solving math problems.
Well, I am glad he appreciates my tricks.
You said he also needed to know about life cycles, correct?
Yes. A life cycle is merely the stages in the life of an animal or a plant. We have focused mostly on the process of metamorphosis.
I remember learning about the different stages of the butterfly and the frog when I was in school, but what exactly does Kevin need to know for 4th grade?
Mainly the different stages in the life cycle of these animals and how they are similar and different. For example, the life cycle of a butterfly and other insects like the moth begins with an adult laying eggs. These eggs become larvae, which in the life cycle of the butterfly is when it is a caterpillar. During this stage, they spend most all their time eating to gain energy to go into the pupa stage, which for the butterfly is them being in a chrysalis, where they transform. The final stage is them being adult.
I have seen illustrations of this process in his interactive notebook.
Yes, we also did illustrations for the frog life cycle. While the frog also goes through metamorphosis, the only stage that is the same is the eggs and the adult stages. Frogs start off as eggs just like the butterflies and then become tadpoles. Before becoming an adult, their bodies undergo many changes in and out of the water.
I think I managed to help him more now after talking with you about all of this. Is there anything else that you feel he needs more help on?
Well, on the test he missed the questions about learned behaviors and instinct. He also doesn't seem to understand what a niche is. This is typically a difficult thing for the students.
Well, unlearned behaviors what animals know how to do from watching and hearing other animals.
Yes. An instinct is any behavior an animal begins life with and doesn't need to be taught how to do. Many animals have to learn how to hunt for food, whereas some animals are born with the ability to do things such as fly.
Well, what is a niche? I do not remember learning that in school.
A niche is an animal's role in the community, like its job. However, part of its job is what it eats and what eats it. For example, the niche of a butterfly is to pollinate flowers. That is its only job in the community when it is alive. What it eats and what eats it is also its niche. Does this make sense?
Yes, it does. I can see how that can be confusing, but I think I can help Kevin understand it all.
Is there anything else I can help with, Mr. Hall?
No. You have really helped me so that I can help him. I appreciate your time and thank you for being so helpful.
Not a problem, Mr. Hall. Just use Kevin's Science Interactive Notebook to help him study for the next test, and I am sure he will do better. He is a very smart boy.
Thank you, Mrs. Boldizar.
Anytime. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a nice day.
And you do the same.